Welcome to the Calzone. We've got Ben Florsheim, and Brian's out sick. The whole house is sick. But I did want to get to the rest of our like 3 or 4 part series, probably a 4-part series that we were talking about the buying process, right? We've been through finances, getting your finances in order, your credit score and all that, your needs versus wants. And today we're talking about the offer. Ben, you're the last one of us to write an offer. We're a little slow out there, but basically I wanted to talk about some stuff that we go through as realtors to ensure or to make the buyer feel more comfortable moving forward and really educate them on what they're offering and the ins and outs of the offer, which could take hours, right? I mean, if you train on an offer, it's like usually a 4-day thing, right? But so we'll kind of skim through like the boring stuff and kind of hit some negotiables. With that being said, everything is negotiable, and we'll kind of get to that. But as far as market research, I wanted to talk about kind of how you run comps. And I'll go through kind of how I run comps, because I think every realtor runs comps a little bit differently, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I was going to say too, before we jump into the research, right? So we've identified a property need in needs versus wants, and we are writing up the offer, and this is what is going into the offer. And in that part 4, I think we're going to talk more about, how, depending on the market, how many offers we might be writing on how many different houses, right? Sometimes it's a home run, right? Sometimes it's a process.
You bring up a great point, dude. Yeah. And it should be said in here, like, you found the one, or you found your next one, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it might not be your forever home, but how much do you like it? I mean, that's going to go into how we're writing this offer as well, right? I always use the term or the phrase, like, if we wrote at this number, if we write an offer at this number and you miss out on it, are you going to be frustrated with yourself down the road? Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, are you going to be kicking yourself when we get rejected, or if we get rejected?
Is it a buyer's or seller's market? Are we going to be able to get, something back from the seller? Are we going to have to come up above, market price? Right. These are all things that are going to go into talking, while we're doing our market research and what's going on in the market. So talking about market research. So for me, so we identify a property, the MLS for us is a great tool. Cal and I are usually in it every day, whether we're, writing an offer or just doing our own market research for the week. Right. Yeah. So for me,
we pay them enough.
Yeah. Right. So I usually base it on the neighborhood. And if I know a similar neighborhood, I might add that in.
Right. Good call.
But try and actually condense it as much as possible. I don't want to get too big. And I usually go back about 3 to 4 months, depending on the market, right? So, so are we going up in values right now? Or are we on our way down in values? Are we kind of stagnant? And that kind of, helps me decipher how far back I want to go. Right. And, to be honest, right, when I was flipping houses, just real quick, we were looking at market prices from like a year or 2 ago, because we were on our way back up. So I was like, okay, this market feels like last year. Right. Right. So there's some of that stuff, but generally for me, it's about 3 to 4 months back.
All right. I go like 6 months back, and I've been doing 6 months for the last, I don't know, probably year. I think it gives me a good understanding of what's going on as we kind of dropped, as values fell, it was kind of nice going back 6 months, because we, looking at a graph, our value was basically at where it was, 4 months before that. So seeing it like that helped me. But basically, we're running properties. We're looking for properties that are similar to the property that the buyer wants to write an offer on or is interested in. Homes that have sold recently within the last 3 or 6 months, something like that. An appraiser is going to go back an entire year. A lot of these properties, like South Reno is pretty easy to run. Northwest is pretty easy to run. Old Sparks is pretty easy to run. Los Altos and those areas pretty easy to run. But like, I had to run some numbers for some stuff in Washoe Valley the other day. And
that can be tough.
It is really tough. You're looking for similar properties, and if you find a super unique property, it's going to be a little more difficult. Yeah. But that that could be its whole other tangent.
Yeah.
You're looking, if it's a single story, you're generally looking for only single stories. If it's 1,500 square feet, you're looking from 1,300 to 1,700 square feet. Yeah. You're looking for same bed and bath count, same garage count, stuff like that. If it doesn't have those, if you can't find 5 or 6 properties with those criteria, then you kind of gotta, all right, this one has an extra bedroom, we'll add a couple grand for that, or whatever the case may be. That's all market research. So we send that to the buyer. The buyer looks at it, and honestly, I kind of come up with a game plan for my buyers, and you might be a little bit different in this, but I say, if we can get it for anything under this, I think it's a good deal. I think it'll appraise for this number, so I don't think we'll have any issue up to this number, but it's all going to come down to what you feel comfortable with. I think that we could get it, from this number to this number, somewhere in there would be a good place to start. Yeah. And then that comes into realtor knowledge too, right? So
I was just thinking about that.
Talk a little bit on that if you want.
Yeah. So I'm working on a contract right now for another lead that we have. Great lady. She's really fun to work with. She is more location sensitive, and so and she wants like a 2-bedroom condo, so very small. And so we've been looking at new builds. We've been looking at all over the place. And she sends me, I think I talked to you about this. She sends me one of the Tiny 10.
Right.
And so what we found out was, I went a little bit more granular with her and started looking at the price per square foot. And I said, hey, this location's great, but you're paying almost double price per square foot for this location.
Right.
Right. For a smaller property.
The Tiny 10 are, for people that don't know, Nico behind the camera, 10 tiny homes built off Ryland downtown. Yeah. And they're super cool. The whole community's awesome.
They're extremely expensive.
Extremely expensive for what they are, right? You don't get a yard. A lot of people do the tiny home thing to get away from the city. Yeah. And these are smack dab in the middle of the city. So it's kind of neat.
So, yeah, it was almost like talking her out of the deal, right? Like, that wasn't my intention, but my intention was to kind of lay it out like, hey, this might work perfectly for what you want to know. And I basically started the sentence off with, I would be a bad agent if I didn't disclose this information to you, right? Like you're looking at something that's double the cost in terms of price per square foot. Just so, things to think about that, the average buyer may not be thinking about, that you got to rely on, the trusted servant, which is your agent, right?
Right. Along with realtor knowledge comes the phone call, right? The fishing phone call. And so when an agent has a property listed that one of my buyers is interested in, I'll call that agent. That agent doesn't really have to tell me anything, right? But you ask these, as a buyer's agent, you're going to ask these fishing questions, right? You're going to go on a little fishing expedition. You're going to say, what's important to your seller? Is it timeline? Is it bottom number? Is it, bottom line number, or is it timeline, or do they have to find something as well? Is it important to them to close quickly? Stuff like that. And just try to get that listing agent talking, right? And a lot of them will spill a little bit more than maybe I shouldn't be saying this on the podcast, but
well, Cal, I'd preface it with a good seller's agent is getting that information and asking the seller if they can disclose it.
Right.
Because that's what we talk about, having a team experience between the buyers and sellers agents and the lenders and the title company.
Right.
If there's a break anywhere in that, it's a tough deal for everybody involved.
You're absolutely right.
I like to call and say, hey, what would make this offer the best looking offer you guys have seen? And shut up.
Right. Yeah. Just don't talk. Let them do it.
First one to talk loses.
Right. And so they'll give you some information. What's important to write in the offer? What's important to put in the offer? You're also going to get some feedback from them on how much action they have on that property. Are they expecting another offer to come in, which isn't out of the question right now? If it's a good looking property that's priced well, there's going to be some activity on it, at least a couple of threats like, oh, this guy's kicking tires, but he's thinking about writing an offer on this, So that combined with the market knowledge, is stuff that we give to the buyer and kind of like guide them. Hey, I think this is a good number, but whatever you're comfortable with, let's move forward with it if you want. And then start the negotiations, right? In the offer, there's a bunch of places where we can negotiate stuff like closing costs, stuff like personal property, washers, dryers, fridges, chandeliers, right? New roofs are a big one after the winter that we had. Sewer systems, stuff like that. But we're just talking about the offer right now, so just stuff to put in the offer, like the inspections and stuff like that. You want to make this offer look super clean and appealing to the seller, without
you also want to have all the protections you can.
Exactly.
And there is a happy medium in there, for sure.
There is 100%. And a lot of times you're pretty close to what the seller wants, or there's a couple of things to nail down after writing the offer. So after you submit this offer, after you've gone through the market research, the knowledge that you acquire from the listing agent, and just the market in general, you put together the 10-page offer, you send that over, and then they can either reject, counter, or accept it. It's 10 pages. A lot of it is legal speak. It's kind of crazy.
It's all NRS,
but it's all boilerplate stuff, and it's all pretty straightforward. So after you send that offer to the buyer, will read through it, and I will oftentimes read through it with the buyer to point out different stuff that my past clients have had questions on, and then send it over to the listing site after everybody's comfy, and see what they have to say about it. Generally, it takes about 24 to 48 hours for the listing agent to get back to you with an answer, whether that answer be a rejection or a counter or an acceptance.
So that's another negotiation, right? The timeline.
The timeline.
You have to get back to you.
Right.
You don't want it to be too short because you don't want them to just kind of glance it over, but you don't want it to be too long because you don't want them to accept any other offers.
Exactly.
Or receive any other offers, right?
I'll give you 5 days. No. I'll give you 24 hours, and hopefully you can get back to me in that amount of time.
And I'm thinking about, one story pops out within the last couple of weeks from you, Cal, where, there's certain things we can do, whether it's in the initial offer or the counter offer, to kind of make the offer stand out. And Cal put $1 on the end of the purchase price,
right?
Which I thought was super interesting, and I was like, that would stand out to me, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't know what so $540,000 and $1. Right?
I'll run through it real quick. We put in an offer for it was like $550 on this house. House was listed at $545. I think I knew that there was other activity. I knew that another agent.
You comped it overvalue to what it was listed at.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was interest in the property. I knew that another offer was coming in that day. And so I said, to my clients, I said, if you want to get this with the other activity, I think, that you can write this at $450 or $550. 555, 550. I'm sorry. Gosh, does it matter? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I think you're right. I think it was 550, and you said that the other agents probably.
I was like, if I comp this at 550, the other agents probably having the same conversation with us, with their buyer at 550. So let's go 550 and $1. And they were like, I was like, are you guys comfortable with that? And they're like, hell yeah, let's do it. And I got word the next day. They were like, love the $1. You guys got it. You're accepted. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely going to make it stand out for sure. I butchered that story. God, that was bad.
I think they get the gist of it.
But that's it. I'm excited about our next one. Our next one is like all the ins and outs of the process of your due diligence period after you're accepted, all the inspections and stuff like that.
So we'll really dive more into the offer.
Right. Cool. This one, not as fun as finances or needs versus wants, but it has to be talked about because it's a huge part of it. And I think we'll kind of wrap it all together in that next session with the due diligence period with the loans and stuff like that.
Cool.
But that's all I got, dude. Anything you?
I think I'm good.
Let's go step out in this rain, dude. Where are we living? Seattle. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.